Polonia partidei Delgado, acolo este va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Valverde Broadcasting. Today we are delivering to your fine earlobes and probably eardrums as well another excellent episode of Troping Mechanism. Yes, the show in which we describe tropes from a certain era of film or a certain genre of film that we've noticed that we think typify that era or genre, and ask the question, why? Why? Here with me today, as always, is Richard Jackson. Say hello.
Hello.
Today's topic of discussion, if you will, is something that I've noticed that I don't know if I've seen it in a lot of films more recently, but it was certainly something very prevalent, again, kind of in the 90s, 80s, noughties maybe, which was this thing of where usually our protagonist or someone needs to egress or ingress from something, like a room or a vehicle or something like that, and the way of getting in or out is to shoot or blow up or somehow otherwise disable the lock through violence, and it just opens for them. So I was trying to rack my brains to think of a better example than this, but there's the bit in Tomorrow Never Dies when he uses his phone to zap the security lock to get into the thing, and it blows up and then just lets him in, and it's like
They do it in video games as well.
yes,
It's like a fancy electronic lock, and it's like, what's the fucking point of it if you just smash it and it opens? There's one thing that smash it and it opens the door.
yeah,
It's fucking madness. Like, the conventional lock, it opens the door if you smash it because you are kicking the door in.
yeah.
But for an electronic lock to go like, here you go, like a Star Trek door.
Well, then they're quite often portrayed as being sort of bars of metal that slot across into something, right? That presumably, and it would require a solenoid or mechanism to open. So, but presumably, like it is on a car door or anything else, it's like the default position is shut.
Yeah.
So by just blowing it up, it's
Yeah, I know. Like, why would it just go like, here you go? And just open it. It's like, what the fuck is I doing? I can imagine loads of like really furious locksmiths and security experts in the cinema just like having their profession.
No. So yeah, and I've seen it with other things as well, like fingerprint locks or like, and sometimes it's just they'll shoot it, I suppose you see it because it is a real world thing, isn't it? Like you say, with like one of the ways that SWAT teams or whatever get into is putting a shotgun round through a.
Yeah, they specifically have door breaching shotguns.
Yeah,
with kind of lower yield ammunition.
Right, that'll blow the lock out and stuff like that. A la No Country for Old Men, for example. But that's a mechanical lock, whereas it does seem to be more prevalent in electronic locks of some kind. It's like it's just a thing where you shoot it.
It's annoyingly, because I've embarked upon this, and I can't really think of very specific examples, and I'm sure people in the comments will know, and please tell us. But it's definitely a TV thing, where you just sort of are like, I'm trying to think of it if it's in Star Trek or not. I'm not sure, but there's a door and there's an electronic next to it. And you shoot it, and a little pyrotechnic special effect goes off, and a squib, and the door just goes meh and opens.
Yeah,
it's just the dumbest fucking thing. Surely, like, if someone shoots the lock, it should like double lock. You know, in fucking Return of the Jedi, where he fucks up hot wiring the door, and it like goes double close.
Yes, yeah.
Like that's what my lock would do. Not just go like, here you go, like fucking bank vault. If you just walk up and jiggle it a bit, and it goes like, oh, go on then, and it just opens.
yeah.
Like what the fuck? And then someone walks out and gives you a hand job.
It's often done. I mean, it's done in reverse as well, where it's used to shut the door. And in fact, not to keep talking about James Bond stuff, but very much in that same point in Tomorrow Never Dies, he shoots the thing in the door, the sort of lid. He's in that weird office that sort of has a hatch at the top of it for some reason. And anyway, or Die Another Day, where he shoots the thing and the big concrete thing comes down and blows up. But it's like, what? It won't just perform the function you want it to because you destroyed it. It's like, and that's something I've never really. Yeah, I mean, but there are tons of examples. I'm trying desperately to rack my brain to think of.
Well, it's the equivalent of like, you know, if you desperately needed to send an email, but you had to use someone else's laptop that was password protected.
Yeah.
And then you just shot it with a shotgun and it sent the email for you.
It's like Homer walking around his house shooting the lights out. Like it's just that sort of level of laziness. I mean, maybe it comes from a sort of, because it was prevalent in a type of cinema where there was a bit of malaise, a bit of laziness going on, and it was that sort of thing of like I suppose it's prevalent in Bond stuff and action
It's
stuff.
in B
because
movies.
Yeah.
Again and again and again.
But it was always... It's quite often used as that thing of our heroes... I suppose it's like shooting the explosive barrel rather than just shooting at the enemies, right? It's that thing of like... It's semi sort of ingenuity, but it's like it's economy of like, oh, he did the smart thing. He didn't just try and shoot the people. He was like, no, I aimed at the barrels or I aimed at the lock to make the door shut on them or something. You know, it's like it was at a certain point. It was to show sort of ingenuity from our protagonist or action hero, but an effortlessness. I think there was that certainly during like Roger Moore era. That sort of thing. Even with Indiana Jones, there was a thing of like. You kind of wanted him to do the lazy option, but the one
it's ironically a very Han Solo-ish thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I can't remember. I was just thinking, does it happen in like Empire or something where someone just shoots a lock and it opens? Because like I just said, in Jedi he does it and it double locks and that's a joke. But the whole thing is like Han Solo. Like a boring conversation anyway. Like Han Solo's cool and he doesn't have a plan, but he always gets through because he's cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes he becomes a cropper. So it's like if you just walk up and shoot because visually, you do it once. Someone just shoots a lock and it lets it through and it's like, oh, the cool guy needs to do the cool thing.
Yeah.
But what happened was everybody saw that and went kind of, oh, you know what, like actually, like we can't figure out how to get our characters through this door. Let's just have somebody shoot it because that's how locks work.
Well, in that it became a trope. It became a sort of commonly acknowledged thing that in at least in the world of film, that's how that worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the shooting the explosive barrels. It's like there's always a big pile of red barrels full of presumably petrol. But it's like if you shot a barrel of petrol, it wouldn't just blow up like that. It's like cars when they would literally like. It seemed to think that, like, and this is another trope perhaps we should talk about later. It's like when a car would go over a cliff or something like that, and it wasn't that it was almost like the act of tilting beyond 90 degrees meant it was so volatile that as soon as it touched a rock or something, it just blew up.
Like there's a pilot light under the gas tank. And
Yeah.
it's got a hole in it, and it's like, oh, by the way, this is designed to explode if you tip it beyond 45 degrees.
Yeah,
but you're not going to do that, are you?
Yeah. Just if you need to tow it, you need to turn that off.
By the way,
Yeah.
it's the same as like humans being depicted as just being huge bags of blood.
Yeah.
It's the same that cars are just this big wedge of explosives that just blow up as soon as you fucking fart near them.
Yeah. But I suppose it's so. I mean, like, locks opening. It is the opening rather than the closing that's more egregious for obvious reasons. You know, the function of a lock would surely be to keep you out of it.
Well, yeah. Imagine, if you don't see in the news that it's like, oh yes, we're at 3 p.m. last night. Some men went to the bank. They looked at the keypad next to the shutters, shot it with a shotgun, and let them in, and they took everything. Of course not. What you've done, it's like if you tear a door handle off, that isn't better to get you in. You don't have a door handle.
Exactly.
You shot the keypad, it goes and opens up. And video games did it. I can't remember if like the GoldenEye definitely didn't do it, but there were certain video games. It's just like, oh, just shoot the lock.
Yeah.
I think where it comes from. I think it comes from this thing of, when you want to make your character to appear as the master of their destiny and the master of their surroundings. And I think the James Bond and the Han Solo thing is it's usually a guy, like a cool guy who doesn't have a plan but always gets through, and it just plays into his sort of general slickness that he can just be like... Because at least Bond has that little taser thing. He doesn't just shoot it, right?
Well, it has a fingerprint scanner in it, that phone as well, which he uses to get into a fingerprint thing lock in a safe once he gets in. But just for the keypad, he's just like, done.
Done.
But yeah, I suppose in a way it's an electronic device interacting with another electronic.
I suppose it's like MI6 have this thing that decodes all locks or whatever.
But it's shown to blow, like all sparks and shit fly out of it, so it's obviously breaking it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But then later on he just shoots a sort of... But then that's just like a button control for a hatch, I suppose. It's by extension, and I know again this is perhaps a different trope, but I think it falls under the same auspices, is the shooting of steam pipes to get people, when you're running out of ammo or whatever. And it's in that same ballpark. It's the same with the barrels. You shoot the thing, and it will just achieve what you want. And that's
cinema
clever.
reality, isn't it? I mean, that's why Last Action Hero, as we've discussed at length before, is so clever, because it plays with that. Because he smashes through the glass with his hand and it hurts him.
Yeah.
He tries to shoot the gas tanks and it hurts him.
Yeah.
He does the chicken thing and it kills the odd job guy, but he's like, oh, well, I had an airbag or whatever.
Yeah,
so he has to think outside those cinematic rules.
Yeah.
But it's just that kind of unreality of just making things move along quicker. and we've been doing it for so long that we've just lost any concept. Because I kind of worry about myself sometimes that if I was in a dangerous situation, I would do that kind of the other guy's thing of just trying to jump off a building or whatever. Because I've seen so many films of just like really got to wind my neck in and be like, all right, man, I don't really think you can do that. You die. Like, you can't sort of just like. If I was in a bank robbery, would I just run at the gunman and try and look at? No, he'd probably shoot you in the dick. Yeah, that's how real life works.
We all have these sort of like power fantasies, I suppose, where it's like, you know, we think about if that happened, I would do this, I'd do that, and I'd fight them, and you know, and then you think, well, like, well, but I'd be on the side of right, so I'd be lucky, right? Like I'd get lucky, like the guy in the film, and it's like
that depiction of that clear cut. I think that's the nub of it, and I think it's probably just beyond the cinema arts in all fiction. It's the sort of that black and white thing where normally virtue wins, and virtue is depicted as kind of being something extra or super, and all you need. Yeah. So like everything just kind of works. Yeah. And we've been doing it for so long that it's just kind of warped our perceptions of what that's like. Yeah. You know, I do wonder about sort of people joining the army and stuff now. I wonder about sort of young blokes that go into the army and the police, and ladies as well, go into the army and the police that have been playing Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto all their childhoods, and they're just kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going to roll in, bullets bouncing off me, and then they have to get that reality check when they go to boot camp, and it's like, but I dare say there's someone who specifically goes, that's all bullshit. Yeah,
you can't just duck behind a rock to get your life back.
Oh yeah, but by the way, guys, remember when you get shot and the blood goes all over your eyeballs, just go and duck behind a box because then you'll get better. But not a red barrel because they explode. The Taliban put red barrels everywhere.
Well, because what's interesting is it's like, you know, we moved into an era after all of that where realism in film and or at least verisimilitude was what was required. You know, you see it with Batman. But again, those films farted around with those tropes. It's like it was, you know, Batman Begins has things like he blows up a cop car that goes flying through the air and smashing in the ground and stuff like that, and it's like, I'm sure those cops were killed, like, I mean, or at least brutally injured.
It's one thing where it's like you can dress something, because I kind of like that. It's kind of like, well, you know, Batman and Robin was unrealistic, which it was, but then Batman Begins, if there's loads of talk about like RICO cases and you know, fraud and legal and all that, and all that, then you could, because the bit in Dark Knight where he grabs Rachel when they fall off the roof onto that car, because I sort of like, I know he's got his cape and stuff, but it's never particularly depicted as him gliding down.
Well, no, well, on that scene, that's something that often comes up. But there's a thing: if you watch it, because he's got one arm on Rachel, he gets one hand on his cape, and one half of it comes. That's why they go like a sycamore seed as they're going down.
Oh, I see.
As they start spinning, so he's getting half his.
Because it's still depicted as being really quick. And from really quite high indeed.
Oh, it's not. A penthouse. So it's not, but it's not well covered. In that it doesn't, I don't think you have to look for it, but basically, he gets half of his cape to work. So it's like they you know, they've obviously deliberately done it so they start spinning like a signal.
Yeah.
So it's like, I infer that means he's getting sort of some.
So I remember there's a bit of Foley where it's like, to imply a bit of cape action. You know. But do you know what, man? I think it kind of ties into the power fantasy. I think it's being the person that everything just works for. Yeah. Because that kind of character is always kind of the master of their destiny, and everything just works for them. They kind of glide on through. Because it's kind of, you know, it's probably, you know, going back to this again, but that was my kind of concept of the Roger Moore Bond, in that he was kind of, because he was kind of like borderline comedy. Yeah. Everything just kind of worked for him, and that was funny, and you know,
it was. Again, I think it was part of that era that I think things like, another thing you can point to in that is and I know where all this came from, so don't worry, I don't need telling. But that thing in Indiana, you know, the
Man in the Fridge.
The what's the first film called?
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Thank you. And that obviously, you know, the famous bit where he shoots the sword guy.
Yeah,
and it's like that. I know why that happened and all the good stuff about that. But it's like that again is another example of that sort of thing of, and that is quite a literal thing, and it's done for laughs. But it's like that. You know, you talk about the sort of Roger Moore era Bond. It's like, I'll just do this thing. Very, you know, he would never. And that was also spoke to his thing as a pacifist. Like, he really didn't want to be shooting people, so he would shoot things or knock things so they would fall on someone, or you know.
It's like the A-Team But I think the funnier example is the Robocop TV series, the live action one.
Yes.
In that there was always a chandelier or a barrel or some boxes. There's one where he pulls out someone's escaping in a boat maybe, and he pulls out a special bullet out of his bum or whatever, and he puts it in the gun and he shoots it at the inside of the boat, and it's like one of those. It's like a massive inflatable kind of cube, and the idea is like it kind of makes him go bleh against the glass and then squashed. Right. Do you remember when he shot that guy's dick off? and then suddenly it's just like, oh well, I've got this balloon.
And they could have made hay out of that. They could have done the whole that he's too violent, so they have to reprogram him to be like they do in Robocop 2. You know, to be more friendly to the kids. You should have that one scene where they have to do that, but no. I do think it speaks to that kind of more. Like I say, it's that there was an era where I think people wanted that. I don't know what it spoke to as us as audiences, but there was that desire for like a simple solution. You know what I mean? It wasn't that we didn't want to watch our leading or our protagonists go through struggle necessarily to get the outcome. And obviously nowadays that's very much what we want. We want to see the
people want that kind of detail now, don't they?
Yeah.
It's kind of like before. So I get that. I think there's an element of power fantasy, and I think there's an element of character, but I think there's an element of storytelling, and I think there's an element of what happens on the day. Yeah, it's kind of like, we've got this whole scene. It's kind of like the chip scene in Terminator 2. It's a really amazing scene, but you can excise it from the film, and it still works. And ultimately, that's why it went. It's an incredible scene, but sadly, you can excise it, and I think it's an interesting scene to watch. But if you've got a whole scene where the spy has to call up the head of security and then chip him out of his PIN number by pretending he's from the gas company or whatever, so he can try it on the keypad. It's less interesting. Well, that's the thing as well that kind of bothers me when it's this ridiculously impenetrable looking door. Because when you say a door with a kind of key lock and a handle, you can pick it, you can smash it.
Yeah.
When it's a big metal Star Trek door and then they just shoot the lock, it's like, oh, fuck you. Like, seriously, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, to play devil's advocate on that, I mean, I think I take your point is that, you dramatically and stuff as far as, it's not interesting to watch someone do that. And so, I get why you'd have to put a device in the script that says this is how we get around this, because it's just boring, like you say, for an audience to then have to involve how they got the code or how they. Although that does happen in films, like there are things where it's like it's a major plot point that they have to get through that door, they have to get the thing to do that.
Do you know it would be what that would be in is a montage of a cool man explaining it to a room full of people in the back room of a casino with some kind of slack bass over the top.
Yeah,
because I don't know. It's kind of fun, but I really hate that heist cliche where it's kind of like, ooh, we're really cool. First, Johnny gets the lock and goes by the sandwich shop and buys some ham, but then PJ's pretending to be a cop, and that plays into them actually doing it.
And they did it in they do this sort of multi-screen,
24. Fuck's sake. Like, don't get me wrong, the remake of Ocean's 11 was cool, but that fucks me off, and every shitbox TV show does it, and it's like, ooh, con people are cool, and
then it always turns out to be like a ruse anyway, and that actually, only like they whip off a mask and it's someone else. They're doing that in Mission Impossible. I mean, I think but it is something they're doing in Mission Impossible. They're like describing the plan and the plan's happening. But actually, that's not what they're going to do. They did it in the last two films. Actually, they did a thing where it was like, we'll have to do this and we'll do that and blah, 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 but then it turns out to fail. But then it's like, we were just watching a scenario of what was going to happen.
And again, that's the thing. I don't know what it is. It's something that really, I might have dragged this off topic, but that really irritates me. I hate the gang of people are cool because they're cool, and here's the cool thing they do to cool music because they're cool.
Yeah,
it fucks me off. It just feels kind of lazy, and it dates back to kind of heist films from years ago, and the kind of thing with the music and the narration. It just really irritates me, which is why that they made a whole show out of that with Hustle. Right. Hustle really irritates me, and it's borderline irrational. Yeah. As soon as I see that, I get really annoyed. I'm just kind of like, oh, fuck you with that shit.
I mean, I haven't watched Hustle. I'm friends with someone who was in it, but I haven't watched much of it. I've seen bits of it.
I always respected that they had Robert Vaughan in it.
They had Robert Vaughan. I can't have anyone with me. So listen with me. He's great and everything, but no, I know what you mean. I suppose it's quite unearned, isn't it? When you're like, the music makes. I mean, I saw the trailer for what's the last Ocean's film?
Ocean's 8.
Ocean's 8. Ocean's 8.
Ocean's 8.
Yes. And that very much reeked of that thing of like unearned cool. Like it was like, and it's nothing to do with them being women, but it's just that thing of like, I'm cool, sassy one. I'm bloody blah blah blah, and it's like funky bass, and it's just
like this is you've done this 3 times already,
yeah,
and now you waited a bit and you've done it again,
yeah.
And it's like not this again.
It's weird, and then I mean, I guess because there's Ocean's 13,
11, 12, 13.
Yeah, one of them had Al Pacino in it, and again, like it just that one felt very. I mean, I didn't see all of it, but I saw bits of it, and it was just like.
Well, that's exactly. I think that the original Ocean's 11. Well, no, the original new Ocean's 11 had a bunch of panache and was loads of fun and knew what it was doing. You know, I think they kind of lost a lot of goodwill after that. But those kind of heisty things are exactly the kind of things where someone shoots a lock.
Very much.
All that kind of, and it's all totally like cool people are cool.
Yeah,
and that goes back to that power fantasy, and it goes because I think that might be what irritates me. It's like when it's done as plot convenience, it's one thing, but when it's done as cool people are just cool and everything just happens around them, it's like, well, because like that was it. Is it Danny Ocean? Ocean, like just things, just cool things happen to him because he's cool.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
There's that thing as well about our hero not getting down and dirty. It's like, and I suppose Danny Ocean is one of those where it's like he's always in a suit and he never looks like a hair out of place kind of thing. And there's a place for that. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not decrying that thing.
I just cracked it. I know why Danny Ocean annoys me because he's fucking middle management. He'll boss you around but never gets his fucking hands dirty.
There you go.
Fuck you, Danny Ocean.
But it's funny because I mean, even in the newer era of stuff where we do want to see our heroes suffer and we do want to see them get bludgeoned and have to, or not bludgeoned. What am I talking about?
Well, no, you're right. No, bludgeoned, beaten, electrocuted.
Yeah.
You watch them suffer. It's absolutely right.
I mean, see the last Tomb Raider film, right? I mean, that seemed very prevalent.
Oh, jeez, yeah, fucking hell.
But then again, I mean. Not that I want to keep using James Bond as a reference point, but it's like there is that thing of like once it moved to Casino Royale and we were supposed to be seeing him, and a lot of hay was made of the fact that he was taking the knocks and very well, and that worked really well. But he still shoots a bunch of barrels at one point and blows up, and that instantly exploded.
As the outsider, one thing I kind of felt when I watched Casino Royale was like Bond just can't help but be Bond. And it's just in its DNA. So that's kind of what annoyed me about that, as it tried to be all kind of quote unquote real. He still went on holiday and knocked some barrels over and
I know, but it does. I mean, I that's maybe a bad example, but I do. That's okay for Bond because it's still, but it just has to be Bond because it can't. It can't not be. Maybe Bourne. Maybe the Bourne films are a good thing to look at and sort of say that that's again. Not that I particularly remember shooting locks or barrels, but I think there is an element in those films of like. Especially the last one. Have you seen the more recent one?
I've never watched a Bourne film.
Have you not?
Not one.
Okay.
Because I'm a monster.
No. I watched the last one, and I didn't. Really
I feel like that will pass me by. It's classic. Like by the time I'd paid any attention, it had gone already. Because it was because like everything was being influenced by it. It's kind of like I'm tired of hearing about this now. I know I'm wrong. No.
I know. I take your point because they are very. If you watch them now, especially the second and third one, they're very. They are what influenced a lot of action films going forward, but they themselves sort of look like a pale imitation now because they were the first ones to sort of be like that. And they have that frenetic, crazy handheld.
That was the whole USP, wasn't it? I mean, and when something becomes so ubiquitous, I just find it really irritating. So just being difficult hipster prick.
But they do. I don't know if they shot locks in that, but like I say, that is something that I haven't seen that much recently. I saw Mission Impossible Fallout the other week, which I really enjoyed, but I don't think anyone had to break into anything on that apart from he has to break into lots of things, but not via a lock.
Yeah, because what was it? There's the one where Simon Pegg has to go diving in a water thing, because that's exactly the kind of heist plan voiceover scene, isn't it?
He doesn't. No, Ethan Hunt has to go.
Tom Cruise has to go.
Has to go underwater and change out the security profile for an agent, so that
and he really did it and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's well, he held his breath for like 6 minutes or something crazy, which is nuts. Yeah. But I know I really love all that stuff. But yeah, I mean that's I suppose but don't see that film series is like with Tom Cruise actually doing these things. We can't exactly sit there and go like that's bullshit or you can't do that. And it's like, well, if he does it, you know,
that's his whole thing now, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, that's his whole thing. If Tom Cruise doesn't break a bone, then we don't have a movie.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? 'Cause same with he did a bunch of shit for The Mummy as well. Like he was on top of that building when it collapsed, and everybody just
Yeah.
thought it was CGI.
Yeah, and he did the Plane Zero G thing as well.
I think it. Yeah, to bring it back round, I think it ties into a combination of kind of fantasy. It's kind of the competency fantasy,
Yeah,
but also kind of ease of storytelling.
yeah,
And I think it's a bunch of one or a bunch of the other.
yeah.
And it just irritates me that people never question it, because it's the same. Someone in our comments mentioned about maybe hot wiring cars and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
People just do it. The other thing as well is the other thing to perhaps remember is that there's a real unease with showing things being done in detail. So like the BBFC, the British Board of Film Classification, and it's kind of our equivalent to the MPAA, for example. They had a real problem with nunchucks like forever.
They
and
did,
they'd either
yeah.
cut things out or give it an 18 because they thought nunchucks were easy to imitate, which is kind of dumb. Because you say the same. Firstly, they're not.
Yeah.
It's a skill to nunchucks, and secondly, you could just ban anything with baseball bats in it.
Yeah.
But depictions of making explosives, descriptions of making explosives, of any kind of criminal stuff, so such as picking locks
Picking
and
locks.
hot wiring cars, anything that became conceived as instructional
Right.
was cut out or was considered,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it's a big leap to just shooting locks, but like anything like that where it's instructional.
Right.
So I think like Fight Club. Fight Club's a great, crossover of both those things, because the UK one had a fucking nunchuck scene cut out, and also he gives a bullshit recipe for homemade napalm, which I think is like orange juice and petrol or some shit like
Right,
that. But it's
right.
not legit though,
Yeah.
because I think in the book they talk about a kind of anarchist cookbook type thing of melting polystyrene and petrol. I can't remember what they say in the book. I think it's a bit more accurate. They might both be bullshit. But
Right.
the point is, you can't have this character telling people how to make. And the kind of people that are attracted to Fight Club as well.
Yeah,
Like these
yeah.
sort of like fucking bedroom anarchist onanists.
Yeah.
Like would probably go and get some orange juice and some petrol and give it a whiz. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, I suppose it's a sort of perfect storm of all those things coming together, and it does seem like something that people aren't too preoccupied with anymore, which is interesting. But yeah,
Well, we're realistic and gritty now.
yeah.
Everything's realistic and gritty, so we don't do that anymore.
We don't have electronic locks anymore. Whatever. I think we've probably over discussed that and segued nicely and made up some crap. So I hope you all found that interesting and edifying. I'm sure you didn't. And I hope that you'll join us again when we come back for more Troping Mechanism here on Valverde Broadcasting. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. For some reason, that's a thing. Check us out on Patreon if you'd be so kind. That we'd really appreciate that. Even just $1 a month helps us out. No, $1 do helps us no end. And there are lots of exciting perks and benefits that are ever expanding, and we hope to add more as we go along. So please check that out. The links will be after this and
In the description. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers. Goodbye.